evening, everyone. We're going to call to order the Jefferson County Local Development Corporation. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did you notice the room seems heavily weighted down there?
Yes. Hey, careful. I'd open the floor to anyone that'd like to address the board at this time. We received our minutes from last month's meeting. Is there any additions and/or corrections?
No.
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept them as written.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report for the LDC begins on page 4. The income statement doesn't change too much from month to month. Total income year to date, $891,000. Expenses are detailed, nothing unusual that I saw. For total expenses, $771,000 with a bottom line of a little over $119,000, but I can't see the other numbers. This doesn't change very much from month to month in any event, pretty well fixed. Going on, if there are no questions or comments, I detailed the ag program expenses on page 6. Assuming you've looked them over, I won't read the numbers to you. And marketing program expenses on page 7. There's a $40 correction I made on that doesn't show there, but we'll show it next month. And the manufacturing program. The main expense here is the safety training program, which is a grant, so that's an offset. The balance sheet is on page 9. This gives you our current cash position, a little over $2.25 million in unrestricted cash. We still have $1.4 million outstanding in receivables and $741,000 left in loan. Nothing else has changed on the assets, fixed asset section, the other asset section. Accounts payable are all normal, unrestricted payables. And then our marketing grants are detailed there. We do have a new one, a deferred marketing grant. That's a $20,000 grant from National Grid for the Canadian marketing program, Marcia?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
A question, that $9,000 that came up in our budget meeting,
Which
the
one?
$9,000 grant that we had to take off of next year's budget, is it on one of these now?
I had to take $125,000.
Okay, that was
Yeah,
125.
That's on the IDA. That's
Sorry, the 9,000's on the other one.
This is, yeah, this was on this one.
So that 125 is on here
But
somewhere
that's
now?
on IDA.
Okay,
That's on-
the $9,000 grant was on this one though,
It was
right?
on this one.
Okay,
yes.
so that's on here somewhere on
Yeah,
the
that's a
other
20,000, it's part of it.
Okay, it's in the 20.
Yeah. See, if a grant is received and approved within this fiscal year, I have to book it.
Okay,
And
yeah, I
that's-
just remember there was a
Yeah.
confusion about which year to book it.
Yep. Glad you're paying attention.
So we get paid the big bucks for it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Balance that budget again.
The aged receivables are detailed for your information, nothing unusual there. Cash receipts journal, I would point out, the last item on that page is the $20,000 microgrid income. We've received all of that 100,000 grant, and we receive it within days of billing, so it's been really good experience working with that.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome. Check register gives you where we spent our money, most of that being payroll, and that would pretty much cover the report.
The, on the cash receipts, the NYSERDA 20,000, just by coincidence, is the same 20,000 as National Grid, they're unrelated?
Unrelated.
Okay.
Unrelated.
I know they're
In
both
fact,
entities to deal with
Microgrid
power.
was 100,000, this is our final
Okay.
20 on it. Yep. questions, concerns?
No questions? Have a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
So moved.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries, thank you.
We're doing budget next, I
We go to
believe.
page 18 for our budget.
Budget's on page 18. We prepare the budget for the LDC, and we try to keep it as near to a break-even point as we can, because all of our money comes from the IDA. This year, we've indicated an administrative services fee of $528,000, down from the $600,000 last year. And as we get more experience with this, we get a little closer. We do have RLF interest. We sort of view that as restricted, however, it is board restricted, and it's not donor restricted. We have the grant income from the county and for the marketing and the ag program, little interest income. We have that New York State grant for the safety training, which is a pass-through. So we're budgeting $1,013,000 for fiscal year ending 9/30/17. Salaries, we start with the existing salaries and project all of the related benefits that go with it. They're mandatory, and that's detailed there. Then going beyond that, we sort of eyeball what we have spent for the prior year on the various other expense items and project that for the coming year. So for the year.
What's the difference on the office expense when you go from 25 to 10 you're projecting this year?
We had something unusual in there last year. I can't remember what it was since. I didn't have that with me. I don't have that with me, John. We had something unusual last year that we weren't anticipating this year.
That's the office expense, going from 25 to 10.
I'd rather see it go this way than the other way.
Yeah.
I'm looking at total expenses of $1,031,000, which gives us a net loss from operations. However, with the depreciation items in there, we should be pretty close to a break even, which is where we would want to be with the LDC.
On the reallocation of expenses, did we change how they're reallocated?
No, the reallocation is the same way. We review the number of hours that the staff members spend on the various programs. In fact, Peggy's hours went down on it somewhat, and mine did as well.
So it's just it's more realistic what's been
Yes.
actually put into LDC. I just noticed it's 10,000 less on about 10,000 less costs, so it just seems like it's a different percentage,
No,
It's
no,
just realistic.
It's an allocation of hours.
Okay.
And it's based upon salary and benefits as well.
And I think one other thing, I mean, you can't go backwards and change it, but this year you actually have the HAP grant in and out revenue and cost, but last year you have it in revenue but not in cost. So it kind of it's skewed to compare prior year.
That's correct.
Okay.
It was reported as part of one of the programs last year.
I had a couple quick questions on the benefits end of it. Did our workers' comp go up the rates considerably?
I think we were under budgeted this year, David.
Okay.
We didn't have a good handle on it.
Okay.
It should not go up. We've had no claims.
Yeah. And our 401K, I noticed that's a big decrease. Do we have someone not participating, or where's that?
I think we over budgeted last year.
Okay.
I know we did. Yeah, I had a wrong percentage in there on the formula.
Okay. I just want to make sure we weren't under budgeting this year?
We were over budgeted last year. And we have the details of the various programs, the expenses and revenue following the main budget.
The ag market amount on there is comfortable relative to what we're projected to total spend this year?
Yes,
We
have-
always
We have
subsidize.
adequate funds.
Yeah, because I think we're slightly under budgeted this year.
Well, we'll be.
We're projected to be
we'll
under
at least
budget.
at budget.
I wish.
We've got some exciting things going on in the ag area, and we'll tell you about that, Jay, and fill you in a
Okay.
little bit, but
With
The
2.5
county-
months left to go.
Because that's kind of the area that you could get a little surprised if that's tight.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the budget
Oh, sure.
for the upcoming year? I entertain a motion to approve our budget.
Make a motion to approve the budget as presented.
I'll second it.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Wait. Resolution carries, thank you. We have a resolution considering, Fort Drum missile defense.
can I talk to that for just a second? Last week, as you probably remember, we unveiled a statue commemorating the activities of the 10th Mountain Division. And I must say, by the way, just parenthetically, that was really good. And we're getting rave reviews in the Army for doing so, and I think it's quite justified. We actually had 4 members of the original 10th Mountain Division that served in Italy during World War II that were there, so we had a chance to chat with them. But in any event, following the ceremony, I had an opportunity to talk with the Congresswoman's assistant and some folks from Fort Drum and some other things, and I think there's a bit of a level of concern that the community has a sense that this is a shoo-in for us, that this missile defense activity will ultimately end up at Fort Drum. And I think we need to be cautious about that conclusion. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think right now we understand that Michigan is out in front in terms of the political appeal. And so even though the EIS was announced and we attended meetings about that, that's the environmental impact statement. And there are some issues with Fort Drum that they're going to have to resolve regarding the environment. Probably the same exists in Michigan and there are 3 communities that are vying for this. However, my understanding is that Michigan has launched a major political effort to attract this important aspect to their community, and we are falling behind because people have a sense that it's a shoo-in, that we're going to get this because it's the right place to do it, and that unfortunately is not the truth. We have to mount a campaign as active as we've done in the past to save Fort Drum. We have to mount a campaign to encourage this development, assuming we all agree that it's good for the community. It reflects probably, final numbers are not in, but somewhere between 650 and 800 new employees. These folks would be, most of them would be very, very high pay scientists and those types of folks. It would have an enormous impact on the community. There are some negatives to it. You're gonna have to reroute Route 26 and some other things, but overall, on balance, most feel that it's a very good thing. So this resolution would certainly show the support of this organization for that activity, but more importantly, I'm hoping that everyone in the room would be willing to write a letter and reflect from their agency or their personal point of view the value of having the missile defense system in our community. So I'm going to encourage you. I feel very strongly about this. This is one of those opportunities that comes along once in a lifetime and would have an enormous benefit to us. So,
Where would you like the letters? Where do the letters go?
there is, I will be able to provide that information, Rob. I'll go grab it off my desk. And anything that we can do to support this, I think would be very helpful. As I say, right now, Michigan has pulled out all the stops, and their political folks have really marshaled the forces, and I think we've got to reach out and do the same thing here. So,
There's also a petition online that FDRLO has.
right, absolutely right. So, but if for some reason you want to participate and can't find a method to do so, let me know. We'll make sure that you've got whatever it takes to get into this thing. It's critical.
Now, when you talk in terms of the political initiative from Michigan versus political initiative from New York, it looks like.
It's falling short, to be perfectly honest. Good day, sir, how are you? And this is the problem. You know, at the end of the day, you know, there's the military aspect of it, there's the technical aspect of it, and then there's the political aspect of it. And unfortunately or fortunately, it's the way it is, but the political aspects of this decision are probably paramount. First of all, Congress has to authorize the money, because that hasn't been done yet. And once the authorization is complete, then somebody decides where it's going to go, and they say it's based on the EIS. Well, that may or may not be the case. My view is, as has happened in the last 30 years, I've been with this stuff with Fort Drum, most of this ends up as a political decision. Somebody who's got horsepower somewhere. And in my view, with Chuck Schumer and Gillibrand and the governor and so on, we ought to have the horsepower to at least stay in the running on an even keel with Michigan. So I'm encouraging everyone to participate at that level, and we'll see what happens.
Resolution number 0707, 2016-01, supporting Fort Drum as preferred site for an East Coast Missile Defense Agency ground-based interceptor. I'd entertain a motion in a second.
I'll accept it as written, make a motion.
A second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries.
Thank you.
Yes, that brings us to our healthcare update.
Thank you. I put together a short presentation, which is mostly information that was presented to the hospitals from Haney's, which is the Hospital Association of New York State. And they had done a pretty nice job of preparing reports based on legislative districts as well as individual hospitals for the state of New York. So basically, the emphasis behind it is hospitals and health systems improve the economy and the community. Oh, perfect, thank you. So as a whole, New York hospitals generate about $138 billion in economic activity, which is about 10% of the state's GDP. Hospitals are amongst the largest employers, as you can imagine, directly or indirectly generating almost 1 million jobs. New York's private nonprofit hospitals provide free care to the tune of about $7.8 billion. And what they mean by free care, every hospital is required to have a sliding fee scale to cover those who potentially are uninsured, but also we provide programs in the community in hopes to kind of increase the health of the community. The financial condition isn't as rosy as the economic impacts. So nearly 50% of all the hospitals in the state have negative operating margins. 70% of those are in fair to poor financial condition. The average margin percentage benchmarked to the national average is the worst, second worst in the country. Hospitals lose billions each year treating Medicaid and Medicare patients due to underpayment. The average is somewhere around 76 cents on the dollar for a Medicaid patient, and less than that for a Medicare patient is what we're paid to provide the care. Commercial insurance reimbursement is the 5th worst in the country. So several challenges there. Well, if we look at the 48th Senate District for the state, the 6 hospitals included in those are Carthage, Claxton, Gouverneur, Oswego, River, and Samaritan. About $693 million of economic activity in the community. $82.7 million of tax revenue is generated. $52.9 million of community benefits and reinvestments into the community, and about 5,800 jobs generated. The one thing that I couldn't get from the study and the folks at Haney's is, I believe that number of 5,800 jobs is the spin-off jobs from the hospital. So that doesn't even include the total number of employees that the hospital has. That's additional jobs created in the communities.
That 1,500 or less, or?
Oh, it's, Samaritan has probably 2,600,
I don't think by now.
something like that. We have about 400. I would say Claxton Hepburn is probably in the 1,500.
You're almost an equal number.
Very close, very close. And they came up with these numbers using a system called the RIMS-2 multiplier. In the Ken Blankenbush's Assembly District, the 3 hospitals, Carthage, Gouverneur, and Lewis County, it's, you know, just to kind of pare it down a little bit from the 6, $190 million in economic impact, $21 million in tax dollars generated, 7.4 in community benefits, and about 1,400 jobs created. And if I were to say, it's very close to an equal number of jobs within the hospital, back to your point. Carthage itself, we have a $60 million economic impact, $7.3 million tax generated, $6.3 million in community benefits, and 500 jobs created. And again, we employ about 350 FTEs, and if you count in per diems and part-time folks or locum folks, we're probably closer to 420. So pretty close to equal the number of jobs generated. So what are some of the other impacts? You know, obviously you provide quality health care locally, all the facilities. We're a major economic driver, typically one of the largest employers, helps promote community development. A lot of the articles and research that's been conducted says a lot of industries moving into new areas look for healthcare, school district, housing, water, sewer, police department, fire department, and so on. As kind of like what I mentioned last month, as we move into this, there's a lot of discussion and a lot of pressure from the state regarding closures and or mergers. The thing that I would caution is that from everything that I've seen nationwide, as well as some things that have happened in New York State, it really destabilizes the community and the economics of that community. You know, obviously you're gonna have the loss of the financial impact. Even if it's a merger, you're gonna have a percentile loss of that impact, because typically with mergers and affiliations, you see consolidations of some sort, which means you're gonna lose jobs, you may lose services. Just recently in Syracuse, one of the large hospitals affiliated with a larger national company, and within 2 years of that, they've been told that they've got to pull all their money out of a local bank. They can no longer use a local audit firm. They can no longer purchase certain things from local vendors. Everything's going to national market.
I have a question. Are
Okay.
hospitals, would you say, generally have little or no tax exemptions, like sales tax or property tax?
Well, it's interesting. So we are not-for-profit tax exempt organizations.
Okay.
But
So-
New York State has this interesting thing called a pools payment and another series of fees and payments, which is really how they tax healthcare.
Mhm.
So they say technically, we're not taxed, but I guess by mechanism, there is a tax portion.
Okay. And then as far as the employees, obviously some percentage of those are unionized.
Absolutely.
And then doctors, I don't think they're in a union, right?
No,
Typically.
not yet.
Healthcare workers.
Please, Lord, never. So.
We'll get them in with the teachers, so it'll be
Well,
perfect.
You know, it's interesting though, because in Geneva, you know, out in western New York, the nurse practitioners and PAs have started to unionize.
Okay.
Doctors, by their oath and whatnot, aren't allowed to right now, but I would hope, personal opinion, that never occurs.
So maybe about a third of the hospital employees are probably
I'd say-
in some form of a union?
I would say about half.
Okay, so up to 50%.
Yeah, I would say that would be a good number. And it depends on the place. So for instance, River Hospital has no union. You
Yeah, this
know,
is talking in general.
yeah, I would say in general about 50% of the workforce
I
is
know
unionized.
very little about healthcare. I try to stay out of hospitals.
I would say.
It's a practice.
I would say that would be a fair estimate, about 50% of the workforce, wouldn't you, Lyle?
That's about right, yeah.
Yeah.
And I worked at 2 hospitals that had no union employees, large hospitals.
Yep.
Down in County.
The other thing they're seeing from, you know, either closures or mergers is decrease in access to care. Another interesting thing in a lot of the nationwide studies is they're seeing out-migration of businesses from communities where hospitals have closed. And one of the #1 industries that leave those communities, I found amazing when I read the national study about 3 months ago, is pharmacies. Because you don't have the prescribers anymore. So they lose their customer base, so they close up shop and move. And then you're also seeing out-migration of other health workers, so if you had a mom and pop doctor's office, they usually leave as well because they don't have the backup support of the facilities. A 2003 study determined every rural hospital job lost, there was an additional 38 jobs lost in the community. And the studies, it's interesting as you read them because there hasn't been a lot of updated studies performed. A lot of these go back to the early 90s, mid 90s, and early 2000s when there was a huge momentum of closure. And what's really interesting is if you look back to the community hospital perspective, it was actually part of the Hill-Burton Act of 1946, I think it was, 44 or 46. The idea was they were going to place hospitals into small communities to help grow income levels and tax base and economies.
Sure.
But now I think they've kind of forgotten that, and a lot of folks are looking at the potential, you know, closures of facilities. And that's scary stuff. I mean, it happened just in Oswego County. Lee Memorial Hospital closed about 10 years ago. And that hospital employed about 400 people, very similar size to Carthage. In fact, the building was built by the same architect that built Carthage. So that community lost that workforce. In the meantime, the plant right next door, Nestle chocolate plant, closed. So I mean, they took a huge impact. And all they have in that community now is an urgent care. So everyone's traveling for care. So that's, you know, some scary stuff. I guess, you know, in the end, you know, one of the things that, you know, I think is true is, you know, the rural healthcare environment is like crossing a shaky bridge. Things are changing literally weekly, monthly, and in some cases daily at the national level. The other thing I thought I would do is just update the board on Carthage because this group, as well as DANK and the local Economic Development Corporation in Carthage, pulled together and supported us about 4 years ago when we were really facing some tough times. And we came to a realization that said we can't solve our problems using the same thinking that got us there. So we did lots of things. We ended up kind of pulling back and stabilizing ourselves just in Carthage, and we shrunk the organization to a size that was more manageable. That did result in some job loss, but if we look at our historical financial improvements, we were losing $7.8 million in 2011. In 2015, we lost 1.6 million. $1 million of that was fly-in loss, that was what I would refer to it as, that we never anticipated. So the government won a lawsuit in Iowa, probably in September, October of last year, that allowed them to go back and recoup a certain payment that hospitals received, known as the low volume adjustment. That was about $800,000 of this loss for 10 years of payment that we had already received. And Medicaid came back and hit hospitals with a retro fee of about $200,000. So we would have actually been at about a $600,000 loss position for 2015. This year, we're at a $7,000 plus as of the end of May. So I'm very excited about this year. I think the changes we've made, although they've been difficult, are definitely worthwhile. So if we look at some of our accomplishments, even through those tough times, we've upgraded our medical imaging and our MRI suites, added a brand new CT. So as an example, our MRI, which is a magnet imaging system, was a 0.3 Tesla magnet. It's now a 1.5 Tesla magnet, so the technology was way behind. Our CT machine or CAT scan machine was a 2-slice machine. It's now a 128 slice machine, both of which are some of the most advanced technologies north of Syracuse. We opened a sleep lab within our facility. We have been designated as a stroke center in partnership with Upstate Medical University. What's interesting with this is if a patient comes in, is presented with stroke type symptoms, we wheel the cart that's pictured there right over to the bedside with the doctors and our nurses, and the automatically connects with a stroke neurosurgeon in Syracuse who can do the exact same exam on that machine as they could as if you were laying in the bed. They use the stethoscope, they use the otoscope, which looks in the eyes and the ears, and the doctor can see the exact same picture as if they were standing next to you. And then they make a decision as to whether or not we treat them at Carthage or they get shipped to Syracuse. Since we've started this program, which started about 2 years ago, we've had amazing success with it, including one of our own employees. The other employees had noticed he was having trouble signing his name on a human resource document. They took him right to the ER. He was having a stroke. He was back to work in 6 weeks. So, and still works for us. And he tells everyone it's because I worked him too hard, but that's not the truth. That's not the truth. We built Meadowbrook Terrace, again, in partnership with the Community Assisted Living Corporation of Jefferson County. That had 60 beds allocated to that facility. We were at an occupancy rate of about half. I'm proud to say we're nearly full now. We have about 8 beds open, and that facility is running really well. Also, this facility is included in consolidated financials that I reported earlier as far as the loss goes. We've expanded and opened our 4th OR. Our 4th OR was designed specifically for orthopedic services. It's the same size as the heart transplant room at St. Joseph's Hospital in Syracuse. All brand new equipment, all brand new technology, and we do some amazing cases there for orthopedics. Dr. Parnez, who's pictured here, is our chief of orthopedics, came to us after graduating from a fellowship from Harvard. He's an upper extremity specialist, and something interesting that happens to us is we're now getting referrals from Syracuse to him. He's been there 6 years. He's built an amazing practice, published multiple studies, and has wonderful outcomes. Our OR team, this is Dr. Gordon and June Arnn, our nurse manager. Dr. Gordon's our anesthesiologist, graduated from Yale. We have the benchmark turnover times in our OR according to national averages and the Joint Commission, which is the accreditation body. So those are all just fabulous things for the facility. We started a valet parking program about probably 2.5 years ago. We park about 400 cars a month. It's interesting, but very convenient, especially in the winter. Patients don't have to walk across the parking lot. They get the car delivered back to them, cleared from snow and warmed up and so on. It works very well. The real reason, two reasons why I started this program. One is to help impact patient satisfaction, but two, we had a lot of losses from people slips and falls, right? And let's face it, we live in the North Country. Both of which we've been seeing an increase in satisfaction and then a decrease in liability. Our slips and falls have gone down tremendously. Also, there's an interesting, looking at national averages, there's about a 33% increase of visits, because before they were no-shows, and if it was nasty out, patients wouldn't come out to come to the hospital. All of the changes that we've gone through and the pain that we've suffered, another way we measure it is by patient satisfaction. And also you can see on here how we support Fort Drum, both with the readiness of active duty troops and with the family support. Our satisfaction is well above the national average in almost all of our services. I would also note that this isn't unique to Carthage. Almost all of the hospitals in the North Country have relatively high patient satisfaction scores, and what the military is trying to figure out now is how can they mirror it? Because at military hospitals, their OV average at one point that was stated to me in a meeting is about 50%. Well, ours is about 98%, 97%, so they're trying to figure out how do small community hospitals accomplish this and the military can't. So that's kind of the update, twofold. One is, I think healthcare represents a huge part of the economy in the North Country and arguably in most communities, outside of the North Country. The changes that are coming and the things that are being influenced by the Department of Health and other national organizations are very concerning, because if we were to lose one or any of the hospitals in the North Country, as we've seen with industry, I think it would have a huge impact. The other piece is to show the update. You folks supported us and helped us, and we were able to, knock on wood, hopefully crawl out of the deep hole that we were in and bring the organization back to the financial health and provide quality health care locally at the same time. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
It might be helpful to note, Rich has done a great job in outlining the direct and indirect benefits of Carthage, but all healthcare in northern New York. But I would also suggest there's an important tertiary benefit to the community that we are concerned with, and that is if we don't have quality healthcare institutions in our community, we simply can't attract or maintain our local business. One of the first questions that someone asks if a site selector is looking at your community, what is the level, the quality of your healthcare? If that isn't there, we're in trouble. We can't compete. So in addition to that, if you take Fort Drum out of the mix and look at healthcare as a sector, I believe they are our largest economic sector in terms of employment in the region, which is one of the reasons that we conned Rich into showing up on our board early on, and because of the importance of healthcare. So healthcare has done a great job of improving what's going on here in our local communities. As Rich says, as you all know, I served on a hospital board. There's been a lot of transitional stuff going on, and it's a little bit of a moving target trying to stay ahead.
And just as of yesterday, the Health and Health Services Board of New York City announced they're facing a $6 billion loss by 2020. And what the concern for everyone north of New York City is, the state's gonna funnel that money to them, and then all of the other providers aren't gonna have their grants and things like that subsidized. The other thing I would note on our financial condition is last year we only received $200,000 of state support. So with only $200,000 of state support, we were able to pretty much break even. So,
Okay?
Can I ask a question? Mind if I
Sure,
ask a
sure,
question?
Sure.
It's just a kind of a general question as you're going through the slides. You know, you talked about 1944 to now and rurals, et cetera. And one of the things that I noticed is, you know, the operating room, which probably had to cost tens of millions of dollars and stuff like that. What percentage of your budget is like new technologies and capital cost to the equipment? That's part of the question. And the second part of the question is, does the state or manufacturers level the playing field with you, like in buying a 128 slice, I think you said, you know, CT machine versus somebody in downstate that, you know, that can keep it running continuously versus, you know, you maybe having somebody do it every hour? I mean, you know, do they, any incentives that they give you?
no,
or anything?
about the only incentives that the medical imaging well, most of the healthcare manufacturers offer is if they have an exclusive right. So for instance, if we use Philips as our medical imaging platform,
Right.
they want to have everything Philips. So, you know, not just the CT and MRI, but the X-ray machines and the ultrasound machines and things along those lines. If they do that, then they typically offset some type of cost, but it's still nothing significant.
It's never based on performance or, you know, $10,000 per image or, you know, anything?
There
something
is
like that?
pricing, what you can do, it's called price per click.
Yeah.
But it's typically more expensive than a typical capitalized or operating lease.
Really? Okay.
So a lot of your cosmetic places do the price per click, even the LASIK places, you know, the laser
Yeah,
eye
yeah.
surgery, they'll do a price per click because they're not sure of the demand. But for hospitals, it's not usually as advantageous.
And the state health department or anything doesn't give you like a preferred rate if you borrow through them or something of that nature?
No.
No.
They have an arm, it's the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, which works closely with the Department of Health at facilitating loans and whatnot. But sometimes they're difficult to get access to because of the instability of the financial conditions of other places. So I think they allocate money by the percentage of need. So if, you know, like for instance, downstate is a big concern. If they have a $6 billion need, I would say probably the rest of the state isn't anywhere near that. So if they allocate funds to them, then it makes it very difficult for other facilities to go to them and get help with bonding or low interest loans.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
it's very difficult.
Rich, are some of these medical dilemmas, so to speak, a result of baby boomers now getting into the
So
senior
last
age,
year,
therefore their higher medical costs, and then is there light at the end of the tunnel as, you know, like you say, as they cycle through, and then you get, you know, that era of population, so to speak, starts changing? Is there such?
You're not suggesting
So-
I'm old, John. Is that what you're saying?
so there's a couple of answers to that. One is, you know, for the first time ever in America's history, there's more people over the age of 65 than there is younger. So obviously that's a huge concern for healthcare providers, and of course, the needed care is going to be, you know, elevated levels from everything from long-term care to sustained care. And it's interesting because I was speaking to our orthopedic surgeon a few weeks ago, and he said, our bodies weren't designed to live past 60, 70 years old. So now it's normal for people to have hip replacements, knee replacements, shoulder surgeries, because it just, we weren't developed that way, and we've not, you know, transformed to sustain those, you know, as many years as folks are living. So yes, the need is getting greater for sure because of that population. The other piece that I would say is the healthcare as a whole is moving towards this idea of population health. And the idea behind population health is we go out into the communities and try and educate them and service the various populations about all of the different risk factors for various health conditions. And what the state's idea is, and I'm speaking from my own opinion, is we're gonna do this in 5 years and the communities are gonna be healthier and everything's gonna be great. I don't think what they've really assessed is there's a lot of people that I would say in the pipeline. So if you're a realist and you look at it, odds are people sitting in this room probably have heart disease, cancer, major illnesses that we don't even know about yet. But we're in this pipeline, and now healthcare providers are being asked to manage the care. Well, I can come out and educate you all you want, or someone could educate me about I shouldn't eat sugary foods and I shouldn't weigh as much as I weigh and all of these things, and maybe I'll have an impact on my blood pressure from this point forward, but I've got several years of not doing that, which predisposes me to having a cardiac condition. So the reality is you've got this bucket that's full of people that are at risk for various health things that no one can predict. So for the assumption to be we're gonna influence population health in 5 years, we're probably really talking about a change that's gonna happen in 2 or 3 generations. The other issue that I think we're faced with is and I think about my dad all the time. He smoked his whole life since he was 12 years old. He's close to 80 years old now. He's never gonna stop smoking. But we healthcare providers, doctors and hospitals and whatnot, are being penalized, or will be in the future, because we're managing someone that's so sick. Well, I mean, you folks, unless we have some way to say, okay, fine, you don't stop smoking, you're out. Or you don't stop eating sugary foods, and that's not right either. We're in this very tough position of, I think the population health initiative is needed, but the benefits of that isn't gonna impact for years.
You run against a double-edged sword there too, because the healthier they are, the longer they're gonna live.
Exactly.
So you're extending the life expectancy, into the 80s, late 80s, 90s, and so.
And the more you read it, the scarier it becomes. So out west, like in Washington State and a couple of other states, they've allowed the assisted suicide, right? So if you get old, you're diagnosed with terminal disease, you can, be reviewed by a board and, receive this treatment if you wish. But there are cases now in those states where people don't want to have that treatment and they want to go for cancer treatment, and commercial insurers are saying, we're not going to pay for that because it's cheaper to do that.
Wow.
I mean, it's scary.
So I should take the sign on my desk which says if I knew I was gonna live this long, I would have taken better care of myself and throw that away.
Absolutely.
I have a question, something you said, you received about 200,000 of state support. You created about 80 million in taxes, and you have 500 direct employed and 500 reduced employment. So create 1,000 jobs, 80 million in taxes, and the state gives you pennies.
And,
Did I summarize that
You
somewhat
did.
correctly?
You did.
I think there's one
You did.
open wound here.
But if you remember what I had said at the last meeting was the state is not looking at fairly the health organizations and their economic impacts. That's my belief. In fact, at some of the meetings, they've said, we get that. We understand you employ jobs, you do that. That's not our concern. Well, that's wonderful to fix the problems of the health department. But then over here, we have the governor's message of, we're gonna make us stronger in New York, we're open for business, it's wonderful, it's great. Well, what if one of us or any of us go away? And the same is true for Samaritan, the same is true for River. The state offers very little support for healthcare organizations. And, it's always published in the newspaper. We received an IAF grant a few years ago that totaled, we were approved for 10 million. They reduced it to 8 million because we were doing the things we needed to do to improve operations. But besides that, there wasn't really huge infusions of money. Now, if you look at like regions, Syracuse has done a very good job at working with their local economic development group. St. Joe's specifically, they've redone the whole neighborhood around the hospital. new houses, you know, refaced facades, done all of that sort of stuff, opened businesses, worked with the city, and jointly they've come together to kind of recreate that neighborhood. So I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunities there. We just need to think differently. I think for a long time it's been siloed, right? Healthcare is healthcare, and that's all we worry about. We don't worry about the other things. And now I think it needs to be flipped to say, the approach I've taken in Carthage is, you know, we're Carthage and Carthage is us. And if we go away, there's nothing there.
Should this board consider some form of a letter similar to what we're talking about for that missile defense? I mean, the importance, we're talking, what, I guess between the 6 hospitals, 15,000 jobs, almost $1 billion in
Yeah.
economic revenue. I mean,
Exactly
hate to
right.
say it, but if it goes away, it kinda hurts.
Unless
Any
you
message
state
you
that.
send is gonna be better than none, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you
I
state
just-
that, and that's why, you know, Rich came in to talk about this, because it's kind of a lost leader. We think healthcare, we think, is this guy gonna get a treatment to solve whatever issue he's got? When in fact, it's an economic generator of magnificent
Well,
proportions.
it's a quality of life thing.
And it
I mean,
is
if
a
you-
quality of life.
You can either choose to live in the woods, or you can choose to live in civilization, and I don't wanna make one better than the other, but I mean, if you have a quality of life where there's a supermarket and, you know, on a highway to get to your home, and a hospital close by, and a firefighting facility and EMTs, that's more of a quality of life issue for people that wanna come and create a tax base, as well as, honestly, I don't even know how you measure, but this has to be an immense support to Fort Drum. Our
Absolutely.
VA system is terrible. The federal government has done a horrendous job in treating veterans
Absolutely.
and anyone associated with the
Shameful.
military. It is shameful. It's beyond shameful, if I could use a different word, but we're on recording, but, it's terrible, and I don't even know how you measure between Carthage and the other hospitals. There has to be an immense support to the quality of life for Fort Drum and the families.
We sold, when Fort Drum originally was conceptualized to expand and house the 10th Mountain Division, we sold the Pentagon, the community, sold the Pentagon on the ability for the community, both in healthcare and education, to accept those incoming families and soldiers, because we had the capacity and the willingness to deal with those issues. That's why we have no school, we have no hospital on Fort Drum. That was a matter of an initiative the community launched, and sometimes that is missed, because that was 35 years ago.
So Carthage, Samaritan, and River are the 3 main hospitals that support Fort Drum, I would say. It's about 40% of our business base, Fort Drum is. And I would estimate it would be an equal impact to Samaritan and River. And that, I don't know that, that's just an estimation, but I would anticipate it's a large impact.
Mr. Chairman, I actually propose a letter, resolution, something be done on this subject, and I don't know how to form it in the,
Well, we ask staff to draft a letter, and
Sure.
we can,
this is a very big economic,
we'll draft a letter, and
Situation.
we can approve it
State
at our
Health
next
Department,
meeting.
or,
I can get that to you, Don, who it would be best to go to.
okay.
I can find that
Does
out.
that work?
And we'll
yeah,
draft-
this is,
No, I-
this is kind of a big deal.
Sure.
It is a big deal, that's why
We talk economic development, that's where it is.
Well, it's retaining what's here,
we'll
and I'm
draft-
sure it can grow.
We'll draft a letter, and we'll have it for the next board.
I can tell you that the people of New York State don't understand, you know, you look at your health insurance bill every month,
Matt,
New York State tax on health insurance mirrors income tax for revenues in New York State. Noted, and it's buried in there, and the insurance companies have to pay it, and they can't tell you.
well, half the time, I feel as though everything north of the Thruway is a colony, subject to the king in New York and Albany. I mean, I hate to really frame it in those terms, I don't wanna sound like some patriot. But, I mean, we have natural resources, we have free land, you know, good land, we have a lot of things to attract, a lot of variety of things, but we really feel like we're a colony. We put out a lot more than we take in, that's for certain.
One thing you don't have, Rob, is votes.
Unfortunately, yes, the way democracy works,
That's the way it is.
Rich, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
Good
other
job.
questions
Good job.
for Rich?
No, very well done, thank you.
Thank you very much. And John, we'll get a letter drafted and
I will. Yep.
have that for our next meeting to vote on. I think it's a good idea. Anything else for the LDC today?
I'm not sure where they wanted to, do you want me to comment on the, on our marketing program?
Spend 2 seconds on
Sure.
marketing, would that be all right, Jane? Go ahead.
That's fine.
I don't have you. I don't have you on the
I
agenda.
got the time conversion, I got
that's
the
my
time
fault.
conversion down.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you very much for your time. The team here in the office has put together our marketing program at your direction, which we really appreciated. You'll see up on the screen, this image will be 2 11 by 40 billboards that will be placed on 81 here within the next 2 weeks. The whole program has been geared around trying to attract the Canadian agribusinesses to Jefferson County in the North Country, where we confirmed yesterday we will be receiving a National Grid grant to help us cover the cost of this initiative. There will be 2 billboards on 81 with that image on it. We will also be placing that image on online advertising that will target the Canadian markets from Toronto to Ottawa. We felt that was our target area, the potential to attract agribusiness from Canada that wants to locate here in the States. We also yesterday taped a 30-second commercial through Quality Productions, which is a subsidiary of WPBS. That commercial will appear on Time Warner Cable News and also on WPBS. We're going to target, they have a package that they put together for us that's going to target their election campaign coverage for the next several months. So we're going to be tied into all of that coverage. What am I missing, Marshall?
The whole program is based around, supporting the new website.
Yep.
And incidentally, the marketing committee loved the design and the how we're gonna be framing it. We went back and forth a little bit on the top with the agribusiness, farmers and foodies. As Jay mentioned, we want the agribusiness, wanna provide information to the farmers, and then the foodies, people looking for quality local foods, and attending the farmers markets and things like that. We figured foodies was just hip enough, not
We
too
wanted to be
hip, but wanted to add something to it that made it a little bit interesting. And of course, the cow gets rave reviews, so we're really excited. Incidentally, they did just drop ship the vinyl to the person doing the installing, and it'll be up very soon.
Is that a cow or a bull?
That's a cow. That's a-
I didn't know cows had horns. I actually didn't know cows had horns.
They
So
all
I-
have horns, and
I
normally.
learned something.
That was a big debate here in the office, horns or no horns, but we thought leaving the horns on caused exactly that. It caught people's attention a little bit more, caused them to focus in on the image versus if it was the standard picture of a dehorned cow. She is wearing a little bling around her neck too. We couldn't fit in the medallion that had JCED on it, but that cow image will be 11 feet high and 40 feet long. That's the size of the 2 billboards. The secondary purpose, as Marshall just alluded to, is to educate our own folks about the value of the website, which just came in handy because I've got one page within the website that provides a ton of information on farmland protection, agricultural districts. We do have a farm that's encountering a problem with junk laws. So I've been able to direct them to the website, and all of the information is there for them on ag districts and the links. So, I mean, like that, we're already seeing the value in the website. So, really appreciate the board's direction and support for that initiative. You'll see these images start to roll out here in the next couple of weeks. And we've also been planning stories with the Watertown Daily Times, so we appreciate their support. We've had a couple articles, my column in Northern New York Business Magazine, the July issue, which is totally focused on agriculture. Will also, my column will deal with that farmland protection issue, and I'm constantly trying to drive traffic to the website, so thank you very much.
Which company are you using for the billboards?
Inkwell Graphics did the design. They sent the design out to, I don't know who for printing, well, I don't remember who anyways. And then, the billboards, the 2 billboards, we were able to obtain a great deal from PJ Smail on those. He was very generous in his offer to support us with that, so. And we did look at several, different billboard options, but that was a great deal that he gave us, so. I'm excited by how well it's come together and the image. I think it's gonna attract a lot of attention, hopefully all positive attention. We'll see.
Is the cow image copyrighted?
Not yet, but you know,
You should be.
we actually, Don and I have had that conversation both, for that and for our Come Farm With Us program in general. My Homegrown Show, logo also has a cow image on it, so, we might want to, look into that further. Don and I have had that conversation actually, so.
Marshall, maybe this question's better for you. The focus is on Canadian agribusiness?
Focus on Canadian agribusiness is part of our Northern Tier agribusiness recruitment effort
Okay.
initiative that we got a grant through National Grid for. Yes, it's for Canadians, but it's also for the residents of Jefferson County or people from the south, because it's going to be facing the south as well.
My only question is, is there a need to identify Jefferson County, New York, if we're advertising?
That's there on the website,
Okay.
homepage, bam.
I know there are several Jefferson County.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
The primary task is to get them to click on the website. Once they click there, one of the first things they see is New York State map, Jefferson County identified.
Have you thought of, I know these are printed after the fact, QR code? People with cell phones like stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a great idea and something that we'll look further into.
Not
We
that
haven't gotten
I don't
that far.
advocate driving and texting, but you know, it's a very long website to kind of remember.
Yeah, it is a good idea and something that we'll utilize, absolutely.
In all the other URLs
Put my
we have,
disclaimer out there.
everything points to the same site.
And this also, you know, even though we're focused on the Canadian initiative for this also helps our European marketing initiative, because it gives us more to work with, more images to use to capture that European attention as well. So it's all tying together, but for the purposes of the grant, we had to focus this on the Canadian market. So hopefully we will be successful with that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Anything else there? LDC. Motion to adjourn.
So,